Some of our friends are attending the interviews in a short period, and most of them, they are appearing for the prelims also. 10th October is the date for prelims. Meanwhile, on behalf of the Ananta IAS Academy, with the cooperation of our director Shailaja Madam, we will be producing some current events capsules for you, so that you need not go to the books for reference or verify any person for the details of it. Mostly these insights are developed by Press Information Bureau of Government of India. That is the largest agency which procures information from different parts of the country. They have field publicity officers, they have information officers through the country, and there are directors related to each department of the ministry. So they will be knowing the outcome of every day, and they will be giving us a lot of information. Today, I will discuss with you about 4 or 5 topics which are in the current generation. The people who are appearing for the interviews, they can go through a book of mine, Job Interviews, published by Gyan Books Delhi about 5 to 6 years back, and more than 10,000 copies have already been sold. It gives you an impression how to prepare for an interview and how the interview will be conducted, how each round of an interview can be surpassed by me by giving respectful answers and correct answers. Now I will discuss with you about the current events which happened during the last 3-4 days. West Bengal government, which has recently been formed under Mamata Banerjee's guidance, who is the Chief Minister of West Bengal, they passed a legislation for legislative council. Earlier, up to 1969, they had legislative council, but it has been discontinued due to various reasons. Now, Mamata Banerjee wants to accommodate some people so that those who have been defeated or those who have to be favored according to Trinamool Congress guidelines, she wants to help them. So they have passed a legislation for enacting a bill for legislative council. What is the procedure for it? Because government of Andhra Pradesh also earlier, when N.T. Ramarao was there, he discontinued the legislative council, and later when the governments came, they introduced it, and now the council is going on. And when both the states were bifurcated, they have their own councils. Now Jagan Mohan Reddy from Andhra Pradesh, he wants to dismantle with the legislative council. That is another process. Now, for the introduction of a legislative council, for starting a legislative council afresh, what is to be done? Number one, a bill is to be introduced in the assembly. Since they have got a lot of majority in the assembly, it will automatically be passed. Then it goes to the governor for approval. He gives the approval. And then the present government, whatever government it is, it can be West Bengal government or AP government. AP government wants to discontinue. West Bengal government wants to continue or to start with. So the upper house, which was there up to 1969, it functioned well, but now Mamata Banerjee wants to continue it. As per the Article 169 of the Constitution, the second chamber can be there for any state. This is the constitutional guarantee. As per the Article 171, Clause 1, the strength of the council should not exceed 1/3 of the assembly. This is a prerogative. What is the prerogative? Suppose West Bengal government has 294 members of assembly. So 1/3 means 98. So the council membership should not exceed 98. And there is a minimum also. It should not be less than 40. Why? Because you are spending a lot of expenditure on the council. So minimum there should be a 40 members council. And in that 98 people, if West Bengal Legislative Council is going to be convened, it should contain 1/3 of the house elected by the MLAs, that is legislative assembly members. They will elect 1/3 members. Out of 98, 1/3. And another 1/3 by the local bodies, that is municipalities, Jilla Parishads, all the members of those elected body members, they will elect 1/3 of the House local body members, and 1/12 from teachers' constituency. Teachers of that state, the entire state, they will elect 1/12 of the House. Similarly, 1/12 of them will be graduates, and remaining of them is by nomination by governor. On the recommendations of the chief minister, whichever state it be, the governor nominates. From which categories? It can be literature, it can be science, social service, any eminent personalities. This is the formation of the Legislative Council. But nowadays, what happened? The persons who lost their elections in the assembly and have been made ministers in the cabinet, then they will be accommodated or they will be rehabilitated as MLC members. When Mr. ESL Narasimhan was our governor, the recommendations for MLCs who were mostly politicians, not any person from outside, they either from the literature or social service or science, he rejected the names, and it has been resent to the chief minister. Chief minister discussed with the governor, and finally some names have been approved. This is the procedure for creating a legislative council. This was one of the areas. And now the second item, which is in the current event, very important, is the election commission members. Recently, one of the election commission member resigned from the post. The reason being, the High Court of Madras, they passed a judgment saying that the election commission members should be penalized for conducting the elections during Corona. They are responsible for so many deaths. So why should the elections be conducted? The election commission is mostly responsible for this. The person, he was aggrieved of it and said, I don't want to be blamed, so I am resigning. So now there is a vacancy. So how to fill the vacancy? Normally, the election commission started way back in 1950. 1950 March, Sukumar Sen was appointed as the election commissioner. That time it was only a single body. There were no other members of the committee. He followed it. He was there for about 8 years. He was followed by Mr. Kalyana Sundaram. Then Mr. S.P. Sen Verma was there. Nagendra Sinha was there. Swaminatha was there. And then Sakdar was there. And R.K. Trivedi was there. It happened up to 1985. So many elections are conducted. Every 5 years, normally the general elections are conducted. Then a Telugu gentleman who was the law secretary at that time, Mr. R.V.S. Perishastri, he took over after Mr. Trivedi retired in January 1986. I met him also. He was a very nice gentleman. That time, normally the law secretaries were appointed as election commissioners. And he was there up to 1990, followed by Mr. Ramadevi, Mrs. Ramadevi. V.S. Ramadevi, she was also a law secretary. She was Secretary General Rajya Sabha also. And she took over in November 90. And she was there for only a small time, 1 month. And she has been nominated as Governor of Himachal Pradesh. I know her also. She later came to Karnataka also as Governor of Karnataka. And there was a very big reform in the election commission. So Government of India thought there should be a strong man to head the election commission. So they appointed the then Defense Secretary, Mr. T.N. Seshan, as an election commissioner. It happened during December 90. He was there for 6 years. But after 1 year, he became a thunderbolt for all the politicians and officials. And he wanted the elections to be conducted in a very fair manner. And he did not allow even a small lacuna in it. Government was not happy with it. Politicians also, they were not happy. So slowly they wanted to curtail the advantages given to the election commissioner. So they appointed 2 more election commissioners. One, Mr. M.S. Gill and Mr. G.V.G. Krishnamurthy. He was also a Telugu gentleman. So far, all the people who were appointed, almost 80%, they are IAS officers. That is why this present litigation came, including from Andhra, there were G.V.G. Krishnamurthy, followed by Mr. Sampath, He was a Andhra cadre IAS officer. Then Mr. Brahma, who was a HS Brahma, he was also an Andhra Pradesh cadre gentleman. And presently, Sunil Chandra, an IAS officer who was Secretary Information and Broadcasting, he took over recently in the month of April 2021 as Chief Election Commissioner. Now, the argument is, why should the election commissioners should be only from IAS? And why should not be there a body like a collegium of Supreme Court to appoint or to nominate or to select the election commissioner? So a petition was filed by Association of Democratic Reforms, because now there is a vacancy. Normally the Prime Minister gives a name and it is approved by the President of India and he becomes an election commissioner, and he will be there for 6 years or 65 years, whichever is earlier, and he will become chief election commissioner if there is a vacancy arises. So against Article 324(2) of the Constitution, the predominant character of this election commissioner is to be very fairly minded person, and he should not enter into any politics. But the present government, whichever government it is, whether it is UP or NDA or whatever it is, they select the people to the election commission according to their will and whatever it is. The present pick and choose policy should be avoided. So what are the recommendations by different committees regarding the selection of the selection commission? The 255th Law Commission report, it mentioned there must be a 3-member collegium or a selection committee. In that, the members should be the Prime Minister of India, the leader of the opposition, that is Lok Sabha, and Chief Justice of India. These 3 people should appoint the election commissioner and they should sign with the majority vote. And the 4th report of Administrative Reforms Committee, which was given in 2007, they said there should be an independent collegium to select or nominate the election commissioner. Dinesh Goswami Committee, way back in 1990, they also suggested there should be a fair method of selection of election commissioner, because it is a very, very, very important position. Justice Tarpundi, who was known for his judgments, in his report in 1975, he suggested that the election commissioner should be appointed by a committee. Article 324(5), it regulates the appointment. The removal also is a very big process. Suppose if you want to remove an election commissioner, it happened in the case of Naveen Chawla, but it did not justify. The removal is by 2/3 of the Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha majority, then only the incumbent is removed. Advani suggested, the former Deputy Prime Minister of India, way back in 2012, he suggested there should be a collegium to select the election commission. And Karunanidhi, who was the Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu at that time, he also supported the judgment. Then it was a very landmark period when T.N. Seshan took over. He took over in 1990 and he became a member of that election commission. He was only a single person at that time. He made several reforms and he conducted the elections in a very, very, very fair manner in 1991. And he was acknowledged by the entire international forums that he has done the best. And the politicians then started slowly grumbling because he has become a big heavyweight. So they derailed the system and plural membership came. You may be having, what will be the salary of a Chief Justice or what will be the salary of a Chief Election Commissioner? It is the same. The Chief Election Commissioner is given a status of the Chief Justice of India and he gets a salary of 2,50,000 rupees per month. That is the salary system. So now we have come to a conclusion that the proposal for a collegium for appointing election commissioner is under process and a file is pending with the, a petition is pending with the Supreme Court of India. Till such a time, government may nominate the 3rd person also. Then we have another subject to discuss with, that is formation of new districts. Every state wants to continue with a weak process. They want to have more districts so that for all the persons, they want to create some district because they want to help a person or they want to person that community also. But what is the procedure to form a district, new district? The Malerkotla, a small place of Punjab, it has been formed as a district in Punjab recently. So it created some discussion in the entire academic field. How should a district be formed? What are the powers of the state government? Whether any state government can, according to their will and fancy, create lot of districts. But the state governments have the power through an executive order also, they can form a district or they can pass an assembly resolution and a new district can be formed. Many states have already done in this particular by way of issuing an executive order. In 2016, in Assam, Mussoorie division, it has been made a district. The center has no role in this. Telangana has made 33 districts. Earlier it was very less. When the state of Andhra Pradesh was divided, Andhra had only 13 districts. Even now it is continuing with 13 districts. The Home Ministry comes into picture if you want to change the name of the district only. If you are keeping a name of Nellore, Ongole or whatever it is, there is no problem. But when the district Ongole was renamed as Prakasam district, the Home Ministry has to approve, because the renaming of a district, because it is the entire national process, renaming of a railway station, its approval is given by only Home Ministry. Then in 2011, according to the census of those time, 593 districts were there, whereas 46 districts have been added during the last 10 years. Now the present 2021 census, 718 districts are there in the entire country. So what is the benefit of creating new districts? For example, in Telangana, 33 districts were formed. All divisions have become now district. All divisions have become districts. And they are in search of district collectors also. Those who have less than service also got district collectors postings. They want a joint collector, all these things. The benefit is, if you form it into a district, the central government gives funds for the district. So now the central government, they are not accepting for these 33 districts. The earlier districts which were there prior to the bifurcation of Andhra Pradesh, combined Andhra Pradesh, they are continuing. Now, another point for our discussion is, recently, we are in news, we were searching for the Sputnik, searching for Covishield, searching for Covaxin, and lot of the people who are above 45, they have been given first vaccination, and most of them, they are waiting for the second vaccination. Because of the shortage of either Covishield or Covaxin, they are very much in trouble. And government also has decided to go slow also. Earlier it was 4 weeks, the gap between first and second. Now they said it can be 12 weeks also, whatever it is. To convert or to circumvent this situation, DRDO, for which Satish Reddy in Andhra is the director of that DRDO, they created a new medicine called 2DG. What is the 2DG? 2-deoxo oxygen, deoxy, and D-glucose drug. It was created or invented on 17th of May, and Rajnath Singh and Harshavardhan, both the ministers at the cabinet, they formulated this drug to the Drug Controller General of India. There is a body called as Drug Controller General of India. For each medicine formed by the pharmaceutical company is to be approved by a committee. That committee is Drug Controller Committee. He is the Drug Controller General. So he also approved it. He cleared it on 1st of May. So now this 2DG is in formulation and it is being circulated to all the members of the public. What is it and who created it? The Institute of Nuclear Medicine and Allied Sciences, there are a lot of scientists in it. The DRDO scientists, the Reddy Labs of Hyderabad, the scientists of that, all these people, they formulated a medicine which is in the form of a powder. And if you take in the morning and evening for 7 days, the virus can be controlled. What is the mechanism of this drug? It prevents the growth of the virus. And it is a generic medicine because it doesn't have a patent or it is formulated by any company, Pfizer or whatever it is. It can be rescheduled again. And the analog of glucose also is there. It can be produced in large numbers. That is the major advantage of it. So the 2-DG is now in very much news. It has come to the districts also. Now we will switch on to another important topic, diplomatic immunity. What is the diplomatic immunity? Every country will be having representatives or ambassadors of that most of the UNO body, and most of the world countries, they will be having an ambassador in each country. We have about 187 countries, and 187 country members or ambassadors are in Delhi also. The ambassadors or the officials of that embassy, they have an immunity. What is this immunity and why it is now in the news? Once recently, about 15-20 days back, the Belgium ambassador in South Korea, that lady, the wife of that particular ambassador, she allegedly hit 2 staff members of a boutique. She went there for some boutique and a facial exchange or whatever it is. Then she got angry and she has beaten 2 members of the staff. Now the question is whether this lady is to be arrested or not. No, she cannot be arrested. She has the diplomatic immunity. These staff members and their family members also, they have this diplomatic immunity. What is this diplomatic immunity? Exemption from certain laws and taxes is there for the diplomats because they will be working in this country, and if they send a report against this government, he should not be arrested or he should not be given punishment. So how the rules have been framed? In 1961, the Vienna Convention, they have created this diplomatic immunity and they have passed these rules. And similarly, the Convention of Consular Relations in 1963, they rectified the rules and 187 countries have agreed to this diplomatic immunity. And this is known as inviolable. The diplomatic immunity is, in a technical term, it is known as inviolable. He or she cannot be arrested. His house has the protection, and this insulates the diplomat. The diplomat who is there, he has the guarantee that he cannot be arrested for small reasons or whatever it is, unless it is a big crime and a criminal case is there. So this is diplomatic immunity. Last and finally today, there is a lot of controversy over the PM CARES funds because so many people from the opposition, from Congress and other parties also, they are questioning the authority of the PM CARES funds, how you are collecting the money and how you are spending the money and what is the purpose of this money. We'll go back to the history of this. A plea was also filed in Supreme Court recently regarding the expenditure of PM CARES funds. There are about 738 district hospitals in our country. So under this PM CARES funds, the money for immediate procurement of vaccines and establishment of oxygen plants, generators, and their installations is spent from this PM CARES funds. It is a public charitable trust and it is a registered body. On 27th of March 2020, about 1 year back, it has been formulated as a registered body. It can receive donations from anybody, including the foreign countries. There is a 100% tax exemption. and it is different from the PM National Relief Fund. PM National Relief Fund is a body where government or anybody can give money to that fund, and it is expected that it is served to all the public also. Here, the committee consists of, in this registered body, the PM is the ex officio chairman, and members of the ex officio members of this PM Cares Fund are Minister of Defense, Minister of Home, Minister of Finance. These three people are known as trustees, and the trust is exempted from RTA Act. This is also another questionable thing. Why should it be exempted from RTA Act? When everybody is included in RTI, why it is exempted from RTA? It is also a question for debate. So, friends, today we discussed about all these 5 to 6 points, so that we will have an idea about the current events. And in the next episode also, I will be discussing with you how you should cope up with the current events, and you should know the basic things of that particular event. Whenever a thing happens, you should be able to go to the roots of the problem or roots of the history, and the entire nation should be aware of this current events. And as a civil servant, you are supposed to be the thorough knowledgeable person. So friends, I wish you all the best.